you have to understand what your why is,
Mhm.
right? Why are you doing this? Are you doing this because this is in you and you can't see yourself doing anything else?
Mhm.
Or is it because you think it's cool? Or is it because somebody told you that you'd be good at this?
Yeah.
You got to examine the why, because that's what's going to propel you when it's tough.
Mhm.
That's going to propel you when you're broke. That's going to propel you when your relationship's on the rocks, or
Yeah.
when your relationship's going great.
Yeah.
When you got money, when you don't have money.
Mhm.
When you have the tools necessary, when you don't have the tools necessary. The why is going to propel you, because that's going to connect to where you're going.
Okay, I'm back to my old stomping grounds, Birmingham, Alabama, where it all started in the film industry for me. And I'm here to speak to someone who sort of ushered me in and kind of nurtured me in the industry while I was still living here. Kevin Crispy Key, that's what I call him. I call him Crispy, and he'll tell you why. So welcome to Alesha Behind the Scenes Below the Line, and let's go speak to Kevin. All right, I'm here with Kevin Crispy Key.
Wow.
Now tell me where the crispy comes from.
So it's interesting that I've been doing film for a while now, and so the images came out really crisp.
Oh.
After a while, like I didn't start out like that. They came
Okay.
out originally not so great.
Okay.
And so once I finally got it dialed in, I would hear people say, "Man, that's crispy. That's crispy."
Oh.
And so then it just kind of stuck with K and crispy put together. So now it's those 4K images that's crispy.
I met you as a DIT, digital imaging technician.
Right.
And what does that do? What do you do in that position?
So basically, the DIT is the nerd of the set. Your job is to be the most technical person in production. So anything dealing with wireless video, dealing with the hard drives, the way the camera operates, functions, post-production, I deal with the editors, I create the files for them. The dailies, which are the video files that the producers and directors and the financiers watch, I create those files. Also, the DP puts together the color of the film. So I'll help him with those different things, creating the look as well. So it's kind of, like I said, nerd of the set.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Okay, I want to know if you remember this story. When we were on Bigger, because I met you on Trading Paint. Were you on Trading
I
Paint?
was, yeah.
Okay, that was my first like full-time film, because I had done another faith-based indie before that. But on Bigger, which was our second one, I was an office PA, and I was responsible for like bringing the expendables to set or coming to get the footage from you to take to the editor. And there was one time I took some expendables to what was he? He was one of the camera ops.
Okay.
And they said, they emailed the APOC, which is the Assistant Production Office Coordinator.
Right.
And said that they didn't receive it. And I was like, I handed it to them. Now at the time, I handed it to the department head. I didn't know. But I did not hand it to the BCAM op. And they said they didn't get it. So then the APOC, she told me to, every time I take anything to set or bring anything, I had to take pictures or video.
Yeah.
Do you remember every time I would make you take a picture?
Yes, now I remember that. Every shuttle drive that I handed you, you had to take a picture.
Yeah.
And so I would just make these crazy facial expressions like, why are we doing this?
I wish I still had those pictures. I don't think I still have those pictures. I have to check and see if I have that old phone. But I just remember you were really endearing to me, because, I would ask a lot of questions and I didn't know anything. I didn't know anybody. And you were one of the people who you didn't mind me just, kind of just being around and kind of being annoying sometimes, which I was not ashamed of.
No.
Oh, thank you, Crispy.
Yeah.
Can I call you Crispy in this?
That's fine. You call me
good.
Crispy.
But yeah, you were someone who really allowed me to ask a lot of questions and to just kind of look over your shoulder at the monitor, and even as we kept going along, you were just always someone who made me feel really comfortable being on set. And as I moved up, it was like we got to see each other less and less, but I still always remembered crispy. And then so right now we are in your, what would you call this?
I guess you call it my studio.
Your studio. And what do you do out of the studio?
So we do a combination of things here at Moon Men. And it's interesting, Moon Men started off as a DJing company.
DJing?
Yeah, that's where the DJS started. But now I've kind of rebranded it as Don't Just Settle. But yeah, I started off 16 as a DJ. And so...
You were 16 and you were a DJ?
I was. That's when I started out. And then from there, my career progressed into radio. I was Seagram's Gin DJ, Crown Royal DJ. I DJ'd for Saks Fifth Avenue, Belk, all over the place.
Yeah.
And it just got to a point to where I said, I don't want to be the old person in the club.
I agree. And I'm so happy that you are not.
You know, and that's no knock to anybody that's still doing it. But just for me, I wanted to be able to have more longevity. Like, when I say old, like I'm like 60, 70, trying to do different things. And I saw, you know, film and TV as being an outlet for that. Because even when I was DJing, I was always trying to push the envelope. I would have TV screens and projection and all kind of stuff. And so it was natural for me to progress into the film side. And just, at that time, we didn't really have the websites like we do now.
Now, what year, around what decade was that?
So I would say that was like the early 2000s.
Okay.
So it was very
You
different.
That old?
I just turned 45.
Did you? That's so adorable. Aww.
Yep. So I've been doing this a lot longer than what people think.
Yeah.
And just continue to progress into film and TV. And my very first job was this film called Office Uprising. My second job was trading paint, right?
Oh.
And so Office Uprising.
That was your second job.
That was my second official DIT job.
What?
Right, yep. So previous to that, I had done a lot of film and production, but never on an actual union set.
Yeah.
You know, I was the indie filmmaker that thought he knew what he was doing, but really didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I had also, you know, fresh come back from Los Angeles. So I moved out there, lived out there for some years. And so going into it, I'm thinking, oh, you're a computer person, I'm a computer person, just copy some files, great. It was a lot more to it than that. And
because the DP, while Alesha's over your shoulder, the DP is also right there over your shoulder.
It's just right there. And on that Office Uprising, that DP did not like me.
Really?
No, because I was a person that was making waves. Like, I thought I knew the cadence of production. So I'm like, why is this? And I wouldn't do that. And you shouldn't do this and that. And in production, that doesn't work. You got to stay in your lane and be happy there. And so I remember the producer, he came to me and said, Kevin, you're doing a good job, but I don't care if there's a spider on that lens. That's their job.
Yeah.
You just do your job and I'll keep hiring you. And so I learned that lesson and it served me so well because now I go in, do my job.
You do.
Make suggestions as best I can. If they don't want them, hey, I just do my job.
Yeah, no, you do. And I actually learned that on Trading Paint because I was Shania Twain, that is. I was her cast driver. And I didn't know anything, so I'm trying to just be helpful to everybody because like I can't sit in this freaking car all day.
Right.
And one good time, somebody got me together. I think it was one of the makeup people or hair. And now they invited me to do this, but I didn't know. But I sat my little ugly self, I'm cute though, down in one of the producer's chairs. And I'm sitting there just watching the monitors. And she's like, Alesha, you're not supposed to sit there. I'm like, he said I could sit here, it's fine. And I stayed there. Nobody ever said anything to me until the next day, and the UPM and the, I think it was the second AD, Alan, who also I love. Alan was like, were you sitting in the producer's chair? I was like, yeah, they invited me. He was like, you shouldn't have even been out of the car. But I was like, I was just trying to help. I didn't have nothing to do. But I learned that lesson too. But also I learned on there to not take things personally.
Right.
All right, so we had a couple of technical difficulties with the light, but we're back now. How do you even get the confidence to do stuff like that? Like to go from DJing to then being in a complete, well, it's still entertainment, but still film and music are two different things.
Right.
But how do you get the confidence to do that and then go to film and then start venturing out on your own in what is now a more unstable industry for us?
So interestingly enough, it's a real process. People think stuff just snap, there you are.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of years going from, DJing to incorporating video DJing, because as the market started to change, to incorporating, video interviews to talk about what you're doing, to incorporating promotional models to, market what you're doing, to incorporating short films, working on those, and then going to the process of, for me, I remember the biggest thing was I shot 13 short films in a year. Like, I just wanted to shoot. I was just up there. Anybody come with made.
Did you have the
actors.
equipment for that?
Yeah, I had, at the time, it was the Blackmagic production cameras, this box cameras. And I just was, hey, you want to act? Let's go. And I would just write like a 1-paragraph short film, and I would just shoot them.
Yeah.
Because I was chasing that look, right?
Okay.
When you see a Hollywood film, there's a certain look to it that you're like, okay, this is a real movie. And so I was chasing that look, and I would get close. I'm like, ooh, that's almost there. Or I'd have one image that looks like, I'm like, okay, well, how? And I would just keep shooting.
That's that nerd.
Keep shooting. Yeah. It's like, I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
How are you doing it? And then when I went to Los Angeles, I was able to get exposed to a lot of the gear that they used, stuff like flags and C-stands and all of these things. And I was like, oh, okay. So then after coming back, I shot my one of my first short films that was actually of length, real length.
Okay.
And it was called Miss Audition, which is funny because Miss Audition was shot in 2015.
Okay.
And I did all of that on a the DJI Ronin, the original small ones. And it was funny because...
Yeah, but we getting all this money for this equipment now. Where that money coming from?
Like at that time, I was working at the bar. Like I was managing Matthew's Bar and Grill. Plus, remember, I was still DJing.
Oh,
so I was able to take my DJing money plus money from running at the bar and stuff. I was bartending. I was doing all kinds of stuff. And I just kept reinvesting it.
Okay.
So, I put my money where my mouth was. And now, granted, it wasn't the most expensive equipment.
Right.
But at the time, it was like cheap stuff.
Yeah,
that you should say I had cords running everywhere. There wasn't no wireless, nothing. You just plug everything in. And Miss Audition was one of those first projects that I took the gimbal and I used it for every shot. Because at the time, that was the thing. You got a gimbal, you got to use it for everything.
Yes.
So every shot was a floating gimbal shot.
Wow.
And it was funny. Looking back at it now, it's like, what were you doing?
Right.
Right.
What was your family thinking when, like your parents, did they ever be like, boy, go get a career?
No, because my parents always saw me and said, he's going somewhere with this, and they encouraged it. I actually went in and had my degree is in electronics engineering. So I did go to college, ultimately I did, and I got a job out of college working as an aerospace technician. So I was working, basically, we repaired the commercial computers for airplanes.
Okay.
And worked my way up to being a manager at the shop, and I'm running the shop, and this is in my 20s. And I remember going into my office one day and I was like, this ain't it.
Yeah.
I just can't. And I went that next day to renew my driver's license. I'm standing in line and everybody's just complaining about their jobs and then I just was like, this can't be it.
Yeah.
And I heard God basically say, I never told you you had to work that job. And so I was like, okay. So you got me? It's like, hadn't I always?
Wow.
The next day, I walked in and I turned in my 2 weeks notice.
Wow.
And the president of the company, he called me into his office and he looked at me and he said, I could offer you more money, but I know it's not about the money.
It's not. No.
And he shook my hand and said, good luck.
Wow.
And so that's how I went full time into the industry.
And you've been, so about what year was that? Like before 2000s?
That
before
was,
you were DJing?
No, that was after.
After. So you were still...
I was still DJing and working at that company. I was on the weekends
and I'm
DJing.
tired.
Yeah, I had my own trailer. That time it was really cool because I had a Moon Man car that I wrapped, and like it was, they were jealous of me that they did not like me. They was like, he is not gonna be here long, you know. So I ended up doing all of those things, and so imagine I'm pulling up to my job
Yes.
with a wrapped vehicle with my company name on it.
No, that's right.
So they looking like,
Where did that come from? Have you always been that person? Because I'm confident, but I'm just not. I'm trying to get there, you know, at least a part of there.
yeah.
But where does that come from? Have
Yeah.
you always been that way?
No, I haven't. And it's interesting because coming up as a kid,
Mm.
like I was a follower. Like I was always trying to blend in and try to get kids to like me. I was like a C student at best, using conduct. Like that's who I was.
Yeah.
And my grandmother was always like, Kevin, you're a leader. But I didn't believe that. I'm just like, whatever. I just want to fit in. I just want friends.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Forget that leader stuff. I just don't want to get bullied. So
I want my lunch money.
I
please.
want my lunch money. So that's what I was up there, just whatever I need to do. And so later on, they found out, because I was always bored in class, or just getting in trouble. And so that was before they realized that certain kids learn differently. And so they ended up testing me for like the gifted program and found out, oh, this guy's
He's not
really
being
smart.
stimulated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like bored. He's already got it. So I got put into the gifted program and I started doing really well. That was when I think it was my 8th grade year, of middle school. So going into high school, they lost my transcript, so I got put into regular high school. But my 9th grade year, I'm starting to make friends. So I'm like, this is good.
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
cool. So going into 10th grade, they found out, oh snap, you're supposed to be at the other school. So
And you just sitting here like with regular degulars like me.
I'm good.
And yeah.
And they were like, so we can start you off your 10th grade year. Oh, I said, no, I'm staying. So I stayed.
What did your parents say, Kevin?
They were just like, okay,
Wow, okay.
And I stayed in regular high school and finished out as a regular student.
Wow. Is it because you were making friends and you needed that community?
That's what it was. I felt like for the first time I belonged and I had friends that accepted me, and I didn't want to lose that.
Yeah. Oh. So how has that informed like your life now in adulthood? Because our industry, as much as we are surrounded by people, it can still become really lonely sometimes, because but you work all the time, but sometimes there are those little lulls that we have where it's like you are on this high from being on a production and then you go home and
You're
I know now you're unemployed and your friends are now working their jobs. When they were calling you, you couldn't come because you're working. So how do you handle that now? Are you surrounded by people now? Do you have a community?
So really what ended up helping me was my college year. So going into my first year of college, I went to ITT Tech, which is not anything now. Okay, that all the commercials, all the commercials and stuff. And I ended up going to that school. And the first quarter, I did what I did in high school. It was just regular students that was being regular. And I was like, okay, cool. Ain't no point in me excelling. Why? So my first quarter, I was just a regular student. But then the second quarter, these really smart kids came in, and they were cool, right? One was this guy, C. Wynn, another one, Antoine, and John Gary. And so they were just doing really well. And I'm like, oh, snap. Okay, shoot, I'm going to start hanging with them. And so I started hanging with them, and I matched the level where they were. So now I'm starting straight A's all the way across the board. And we had our system down so good that if a teacher gave us 100 questions, I would do 25, the other one would do 25, the other one would do 25, and then we would swap our answers around, and then we would turn in and be gone.
Okay.
And the teacher was like, whatever, we know they can do the work. Like, it's not like they don't
Y'all are cheating, but on a technicality, she's not going to count it.
Right. So she was like, okay, whatever. So we would leave halfway through, we have like 2 quarters, and then, 2 classes, and then there was a break. So we would have all our work done, and we would leave on the break and not come back. Yeah, so it got to that point, and then what it ended up doing was saying, okay, my problem wasn't that you can't feel good about shining. You have to be around the right people that can help you and feel good about shining.
That's good, Pastor.
Okay?
That's good, Pastor. That is
So
good.
now, once I learned that, I was like, oh, snap. I'm not going to hold back no more. And then the words that my grandmother gave me years ago, you're a leader. Now I'm like, shoot, I'm going to start leading, because if these people help me to feel free enough to be who I can be, if I lead, maybe I can help some other people feel free enough to be who they can be.
Yeah.
So now you've ignited this passion and this pathway, and you understand that leadership is not about you, it's about the others.
Yeah.
You see?
It is.
And so that's
it's a servant job.
It is a servant job. So what do I do in these lulls? I create. Whatever ideas I have, I try them. I just do them, and I just make stuff happen. And that energy of movement creates things. So you can't just sit there and be like, I'm just waiting on somebody to call. Because really, coming into the industry, I was not a part of the groups at all. Like, there was the buddy system inside of film and TV, and I was not a part of it.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, hey, I want to be a...
No.
You can't get in.
Yeah.
So the way that I actually got in was I started creating all of my own projects and stuff, and I made so much noise that people were like, you work with Kevin?
Yeah.
Like, Kevin's... And so it ended up working that way. Now that everybody knows who I am, it's like, okay, call that guy.
Yeah.
And so that's how
if they can afford you. Because he got money now. But no, let me tell you, I was on I won't say what it was, but I was on something, and I just remember they were looking for a DIT, and I kept saying, well, Kevin. And they were like, yeah, no, we can't afford him. And then they would keep going back, and they would call you. I remember they would keep calling you because I was friends with, he was a new UPM at the time. And he'd be like, this guy just isn't. I was like, he shouldn't go down. Y'all can figure it out. So if they can get you, if they can afford you, then they call. But your name be out there. It does. But I tell you about that leadership. So on Eye for an Eye, like I said, I was new in the industry, and I just wanted to be doing something. So when I didn't have it, I was trying to find somewhere I could work for free, whatever. And I remember coming on to Eye for an Eye just as a general PA. Yeah. And you could not tell me I wasn't being paid, okay? Because I had such a great time. We were working some really long overnight, like hard. 18 hours. But I would do it over and over and over again. That's probably one of my most favorite experiences, because I got to touch everything, and I got to learn so much. And the freedom that you speak about of making space for other people to see what their way is, you allowed a lot of us to do that, because I also know, oh man, what is, I can't believe I can't remember his name, but he works a lot now. He was maybe the first AC on it.
Jay Gallup?
Jay, yes. Yeah. I'm sorry, Jay. Jay, even for him, I think that was like one of his first opportunities, and you would continue to allow him to help out whenever you and Dell would do stuff. And so I learned from that, and that's what I tell people now. I'm never too big to do anything, because I love to create, and when I'm not doing it, I feel like, well, what am I here for? What am I here for? So I can attest to that. So when I first met you, and this is why I think you had all this time, child, because you ain't have no wife, you ain't have no kids, no nothing, so you could just do what you wanted to do. How has life changed now that you have a family? Yes, I'm putting your business out there.
Well, you know, it's actually a different transition of my life now. You know, I'm actually back, you know, on the single side of things.
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
You know. So,
wait, do you want me to take that out?
We'll probably edit that part. It's like, well, about that,
dang.
You know, life transitions, paths, it's just really an interesting thing, because you just never know what's gonna come your way. Yeah. And you just deal with situations the best way you can. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with good or bad. It's just simply the direction that you're going in that moment in life and where God's calling you. And you never know where those paths going to diverge later on in life, but at this moment you have a calling that is taking you in a certain direction, and you've got to be obedient to that. And the thing about why you have to be obedient is because a lot of times it's not about you. It's about other people that are connected to you. And, you know, that's a lot of time the burden that leaders carry. You know, do you stay with your love or do you go save the world? You know, how do you balance those things?
Especially as a man, I feel like it's different. I remember there was a guy when I was younger, and he was like, what if I wanted to be a martyr? I said, well, honey, you don't want to be with me. I can't take it. But that was his mentality. I said, I can't. I'm like, I want to save the world, but also I like to feel a little bit secure. So I feel like that burden for men is a little bit different.
It is. You know, the callings are serious, especially when, you know, there's a difference between, like they say, people being chosen and people being called, right? Everybody's like, oh, I'm calling you, right? But the ones that are specifically chosen, there's not really the same level of choice. It's like you're chosen, but you don't have choice. Because even you think about, you know, Jonah and the whale, right? He was chosen. Did he have a choice? Yeah, he could have stayed in the whale, but is that really a choice?
No.
You know, so as you continue to go away from what you're called, things are just going to get progressively harder for you. And then once you get in the lane, everything lines up. And a lot of times, the things that you were trying so desperately to hold on to will line up too. But that's the part of faith, right?
How have you stayed encouraged through that?
How have I stayed encouraged?
Yeah.
Really, it's faith, like the faith walk. What was interesting is during that time, the 21 days of prayer with church came up. So I was at church every day, praying and, just really worshiping and meditating and doing those things and saying, okay, God, what is it that you have for me in this moment? What is it you want me to learn? What is it you want me to see? And what I think is the most helpful is when you start doing self-internalization. I mean, you start doing self-reflection, internalizing, trying to ask the questions about who am I? Where am I going? What have I done? What have I learned? How can I be better? What are the wrongs that I've done? How can I right them? You know, these are the things that are really helpful, because what I find is in situations like this, you can develop a hard heart if you're not careful. And if you do that, then you're going to cut off all your blessings. I was talking to one of my buddies today, and I was saying that, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. But what we don't realize is as we say certain things, the heart encodes what's the meaning behind it.
Yeah.
So you can go in and say, hey, how you doing today? Oh, I'm having a good day. I hope you have a good day. And you can say the words, but the heart encoding creates a whole different
That's
meaning.
why it says that God searches our hearts.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure that your heart is right. And how do you do that? You have to do the hard thing. This is kind of one of the things I talk about in my messages, is that doing the hard thing.
Is this the Crispy Speaks?
Yeah, the Kevin Key Speaks.
Kevin Key Speaks,
yeah.
Yes.
And it's like doing the hard thing is the heart thing. What is that thing that your heart is not wanting to do? Right? That's the part.
What it don't want to do, Lord? What it don't want to do?
You know?
Okay.
And so that heart doesn't want to forgive. It wants to keep a tally of wrongs and all of this kind of stuff. And they did this, they did that, it should have been this. But no, you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
I forgive, I forget, I played a part, everybody plays a part. How can I be better?
Yeah.
And so my goal right now is to resemble something that looks completely different than what I looked like before. To where when people see me, they say, who is that? That's not Kevin.
Yeah.
It's completely different.
Yeah.
You want
your true image in Christ.
Exactly. You want to reflect something completely different.
Yeah.
And that requires putting in the work.
Whoo, child. So how long have you known that? And working in our industry, it can be not so godly. How have you been able to balance that as you get higher and you become more well-known and you become more sought after? How have you been able to balance your faith and also this craft of creativity that we live?
What's really funny is, you probably will not believe this.
Okay.
But I don't take myself that seriously.
Really? I don't believe that.
I really don't. I think it's hilarious that people think that I'm this sought after producer DP. It is so funny to me.
Well, you hear your name often. I'm serious.
So this is what I look at it like.
You're always working, Crispy. Always.
And it's so funny to me, right? Like, I take my job seriously, but I don't take myself seriously.
Okay.
All right. So, like, Miss Audition. Like, now, that's my new pilot. Remember I told you the original I did is 2015.
Right.
I revamped it, rewrote it, recast it and reshot it. And so now it's actually on the Roku channel and Tubi.
Oh!
So I have that out there. And as I was doing the auditions and castings and so forth, I would be like, y'all really think I'm a producer? This is so funny. Like,
No.
they're like, yes, Kevin, like, we really want to work and we want to do something. I'm just like, I'm like,
no, but you can be real stoic. You have a good poker face, Kevin.
And it's funny. I'm like, I literally just wrote this script. So I'm going to do this script and it's going to be great. And people are like, yeah, it's going to be great. I'm there.
Wow.
So that's literally how I
So we're
think
just
of it.
naive out here.
I'm not a real producer. I don't do this for real. And
Yes,
y'all
you do, Crispy. Yes, you do. Look at all of this. Yes, you do. But I do think that that is important for us to, because I take myself, sometimes I can take myself too seriously because I care so much about so many different things. So it's hard to not.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. But that's what keeps me is that, you know, the work is always before you, right? And if you take too much time, you know, looking at yourself, you're going to miss something. So I'm always looking and say, okay, how can I be better? How can I grow? Like, there's always something to do to go to the next level. It's always something. You know, even we look at like the film I just did was over in Mississippi. It's a Liam Neeson movie. He's pretty friendly, by the way.
Yeah.
But we were working.
Oh, my mom would have loved to know.
Yeah.
You know, that's where she lives.
She lives.
Y'all were
that's
in
right.
Jackson?
Yeah, Jackson,
Yeah.
around Canton and all those areas.
Okay, yeah.
So one of the carts that we have, the wheel was messing up on it, so had to try to figure out a way to fix that.
Yeah.
And then this other monitor wasn't working, so then we have to create a situation to fix that.
Yeah.
So as long as you're focused on the work and being better and producing the highest quality that you can,
Yeah.
you got so much to focus on other than yourself.
Yes.
And so that's how I'm constantly looking to say, okay, what else can we
that's
do?
good.
How else can we do this? And where can we be better? What's the next thing? You know, and you also have a lot of responsibility. So when your responsibility shifts to everybody else,
Yeah,
you really can't focus so much on yourself.
that's true. Okay. So you would consider yourself an entrepreneur?
I guess.
Why you say you guess?
Remember I told you, I don't take myself so seriously. So to me,
I just pay my bills and my
you know what I'm saying?
business.
Look,
That's
like
it.
I just fell into the industry. I don't know what happened. I wake up every day and I'm blessed. You know,
No, that's nice. You right in his bosom.
You know what I
okay.
mean? I'm just in the lane. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Lord, use me. Nah.
Yeah. Well, for those who might be wanting to transition, maybe even just coming into
Yeah.
the industry or wanting to sort of carve their own lanes, how would you encourage them?
Yeah, so really, I think the
Me,
biggest-
Kevin, encourage me.
encourage you.
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing that I would tell people is you have to understand what your why is, right? Why are you doing this? Are you doing this because this is in you and you can't see yourself doing anything else? Or is it because you think it's cool? Or is it because somebody told you that you'd be good at this?
Yeah.
You got to examine the why, because that's what's going to propel you when it's tough. That's going to propel you when you're broke. That's going to propel you when your relationship's on the rocks or
Yeah.
when your relationship's going great.
Yeah.
When you got money, when you don't have money. When you have the tools necessary, when you don't have the tools necessary. The why is going to propel you because that's going to connect to where you're going. And as long as you know, okay, I'm struggling now for that, then it's going to keep your perspective in the right place so you can have the right attitude for what you're doing, because you know that this is temporary, what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And so you don't get stuck looking right in front of your feet. Your gaze goes further out. So the first thing I would tell them is figure out what your why is. And if your why is not strong enough to sustain you, you might not be in the right industry.
Okay, child. We listening, Crispy. We listening.
Don't listen too hard. I told you.
You're not taking yourself
Don't.
serious.
And I'm going to laugh at y'all later.
No,
You're like,
don't
she
laugh.
listened to me.
Don't
No,
laugh.
I'm just saying.
And it worked out.
Like, wow. Like,
yeah.
they were really leaning. Like, it would be so funny. People like, I'm like,
But no, now you got to steward it well, Crispy, because the Lord does use you.
Right. No, I understand. I very much so take this role very seriously.
Yeah.
And it's super important how you present yourself and what's been given to create a story that is realistic. Right. I think that one of the most damaging things right now in our industry is the perception of social media.
Yeah.
Notice I said not social media, the perception of social media, because we perceive what we see on social media as real and the gospel.
Yeah,
but it's not.
Yeah.
Social media can be an amazing tool, but it's a tool like anything else.
Yeah.
And so 5 steps to this, 10 steps to that, you too can be amazing. But what they're doing is they're cutting out steps.
And that is literally why I said I'm not going to take out our little technical difficulty, because that is a part of what I want people to see.
Yeah.
Because for a person like me, who I can kind of be a perfectionist and I can be so serious sometimes, I enjoy to see the process that it took for people to get there, instead of watching all of the 5 steps, 10 steps, this is what God is telling you to do type thing, because it is actually, for me, it's discouraging, because then it makes you feel like, well, how am I not doing enough? And I'm doing so much. So that's a part of the reason I'm doing it, because we found ourselves in this really vulnerable place in the film industry. And so many people I know are just questioning, well, what purpose do I have anymore? And what am I even on this earth for? And just really questioning their own existence and why God created them in the first place. And so I think that if you can see how, like you said, social media, what people are portraying is what they want you to see, but it is not everyday life. That is exactly why I'm like, I hope that this actually encourages people to know, like, you can lean on God and you can continue to have faith, and things are not always going to be pretty.
No.
Actually, a lot of times they're not pretty, but if you know who you're holding on to and why He put you here, then it does give you something to work toward. But have you ever had a time where you kind of lost sight of the why?
Even I can actually summarize, I was saying, cut this piece out, but it's a real part of what happened in my life. So I would say during that part of it, that's you kind of wondering, because whenever you go through something like that, a major life change, it forces you to reevaluate things, to be able to go and say, okay, what is the path that I'm on now? I thought this path looked like this, but now what it looks like is very different.
That is hard, Kevin. Because I am so good with transitions, but it's some that are just so difficult. How have you been able to make such a huge life transition? That's hard.
Yeah, it is definitely hard. And I think that a lot of times we make these transitions not just for us, but for others, because so much has actually come out of it.
Okay.
I've wrote a couple of songs. Yeah, I've written this other film that basically now it tackles the subject and topics of what men deal with, right? The different depressions and emotional roller coasters that men have that we don't really talk about.
No.
Right?
Especially in the South.
No, we don't. And I actually ended up making a Kevin Key Speaks that's called It's Okay to Cry. Right? And so I talked about how freeing that it becomes when you can actually just cry about things as a man, but understand that you have to have a circle of people that you can feel comfortable and be like, yo, man, shoot, I was weak. I was crying my eyes out, because I
couldn't sleep.
I couldn't sleep. Like I was wrecked, and be able to honestly say that.
Yeah.
Like you got to do that. And so that's kind of, I think, what part of this process is to be able to use the platform that I have, because there are people that watch, okay, Kevin, he doesn't go through nothing. Things are good on his plate. It's easy for him, right? But not understand that, no, I go through things too.
Yeah.
And it was funny, just being honest about this. I was, when I was in Mississippi, because all of this stuff is still very new.
Is it? And I just want to clarify, we're speaking of divorce.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, very new. And I remember going to set one day, and I was in the box truck And you're just thinking about things, right? And where they are, what's going to happen, you know, who's surrounding what. And at the same time, you've got your job that you got to do that you're responsible for. People are counting on you. And I was just driving, I'm on the freeway, and I just started crying, right? And I'm just like, and I was talking to one of my friends. And she was like, it's okay. I was like, no, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be good. And, you know, I said, I'm go to work, get through this gate, and I'm gonna do my job, and I'm gonna keep working, keep putting the work in. And got through the gate, you know, get yourself together, get out, go do your job. Hey, everybody, how you doing? This, that, and the other. And I think it's funny because women traditionally have done that all the time. Right? They'll go out there and be like, man, girl, I was crying and my makeup's all over my face and I had to go redo my makeup and so forth. But what I want to do now is to normalize that, men, if you need to do that, it's okay. Because we really are hurting. People think that men are just a machine. We just a robot. We don't feel nothing. We don't care nothing. No, like men really be tore up inside.
I know. And I think, and I'm so happy that you're doing that because it is going to free a lot of men. And I feel like the families will be stronger when when men are able to be free in that way. And I think families will actually stick together a little bit more because you feel like you have that support. You're not being shunned. You're not being told that you're weak. Because also it helps us, like me, who I was single for a long time, and just to see how sensitive men can be, that helps me to bring my walls down. Because I came to Birmingham by myself. They said it's so dangerous, so I became so strong and so guarded. And then we also work in an industry that's still pretty male dominated, so I have this other hard exterior. And so people can look at me too and be like, oh, you're strong. I'm like, I'm human. But for me to be able to see a man show vulnerability and show humanity the same way Jesus did, because you all are the image of Christ to your wives, that allows us to, as the trendy thing to be, walking our femininity or whatever the kids say these days. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that the thing about it though is there has to also be a reprogramming of relationships because men have not traditionally shown these emotions, right? There has also been a guardedness of women that they felt the need that they have to be so strong. So now you're so strong that you're actually shattering him.
It's true.
And we don't realize that now the words of, you know, men heard coming up, you got to be a man, don't cry, don't do this, that, and the third, is being echoed in our relationships. To be like, well, you supposed to take care of this, you supposed to do this, you supposed to do that. So now the guy has nowhere to go but inside. One of the worst things I heard was a buddy of mine, he was telling me about the script Fire that I wrote, which is, I'll have to let you see it, but it breaks down these themes. And basically the guy was sitting outside in his car and his wife comes up and she's like, hey, how long you been out here? And he's like, oh no, I'm just finishing up a little bit of work so I can come in and, you know, do your honeydew and all that stuff. And so she's like, all right, cool. Well, you know, don't take too long. You know, I got stuff going on. And she missed it. He's sitting in the car. He's saying he's doing the work.
And he's crying out.
He's crying out.
Mm.
He's hurting. And he's contemplating, am I going to go in this house with everything I got going on with somebody who doesn't see me, right? But I still got to do the work. I still got responsibility, but I'm hurting inside. I'm thinking about the beach. I'm thinking about all these other things that give me freedom. And so when he saw that, he was like, wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. And as I started to talk to more guys, I realized that so many guys shared that same story I had of sitting in the car or not going in the house or all of these things or wanting to drive the block or all of this stuff. But they have nobody to be honest to about that. And so he says, I mean, you know, nobody wants to hear about it. You just got to deal with it. And, you know, you just got to be a man because don't nobody really care. And I told him, I said, I am so sorry that you feel like that.
Yeah.
And I said, if you want to talk about it, I'm here to listen.
Mm.
But previous to my life-changing moment, I couldn't see that.
Woo.
To even be able to see that in another man, because I couldn't see that in myself. You see? So sometimes we have to go through major life change.
Crispy, you're not about to have me up in here crying. That's what you're not going to do.
You know, to recalibrate us and to be able to see a humanity that we've never been able to see before.
Yes.
Because we've been so consumed with ourselves.
Yes.
So now, even when I look at social media and stuff, everybody's telling you, oh, set your boundaries, don't do this. If this person does that, get rid of them, and you don't do. It's so aggressive.
It's so aggressive, but it's nothing but cries out for help.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like,
just
you
in a
are
really
lying.
painful way. Yeah.
You want a hug.
Yeah. I want a hug.
You want a hug.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm only able to see this stuff now because of these things.
Yeah.
You know, there was this lady, and I know we're kind of shifting into areas, but there was this lady who was in our studio. She was brought in. She's a producer, and you know, she was talking to me about this investor. She's like, oh yeah, you know, got this investor. You know, talk to you. You know, you single now? And I was like, well, I'm kind of going through a transition at this moment. And then so she was like, you know, me too. She's pointing her hand. She's like, forget the ring, forget this. I'm doing all this, and you know, he can do. She goes in that whole thing, and so I said, okay. And then she goes on, keeps talking, and I tell her, I said, hey, I just want to tell you, it's okay. If you're hurting, I get it. And I said, whatever you need to feel, if you need to feel angry, sad, happy, that's okay.
Yeah.
And she started crying.
Oh.
And I hugged her. We put these airs on so heavy to try to make us believe that this is really where we're at.
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's not.
So we got to start being authentically honest about where we are and being able to say, I'm not okay. I'm not. You know, I'm going through X, Y, Z. This is what happened to me. And there's freedom in being able to say that. And so I think that post life change, the person that I am now is more vocal about being able to say, you know what? Yeah, today sucked, but that's okay. Or, you know, I've been going a week and I didn't cry, and today I freaking cried. I'm mad at myself. But give yourself room to say, that's okay.
Yeah.
And have a group of people around you that's like, that's okay. It's all right. Whatever you need. But it didn't come until I started being honest about it. So that's
the truth set you free.
It does. And making sure that you do not harden your heart. Like, that's so important. You harden that heart, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
So being able to forgive and being able to give grace, being able to share compassion, even in the challenging moments, that's freedom for you.
Yeah.
It's not for them.
Yeah.
That's for you to keep your heart soft.
Yeah. Oh, crispy. That's all I got. You got anything else you want to say? Because that's it, buddy. I didn't know. But I'm so grateful. And I thank you so much for this interview and for your vulnerability and your openness and helping us set all of this up and being so generous and sharing your lighting with us, everything. I'm really, 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 really grateful. This is a gift for me, so thank you.
I appreciate you for this platform. You know, it does my heart good that you actually wanted to interview me. I'm like, you want to interview me? Like, why would she want to interview me?
Why not? You're crispy.
That's what I'm telling you. I don't take it seriously. She was like, I want to interview you. I'm like, for what?
And you probably didn't believe me because I told you in like May or something, but I was gone for 2 months. And you probably didn't believe I was serious.
And I'm saying, I'm looking at your show, the people you're interviewing. I'm like, wow, these are like real people. Like, how am I? Like, what do I have to bring to the table? Like, oh my God.
You just brought a lot. You don't even. I hope that you understand, but honey, the Lord be moving. That's all I got to say. And
Well,
I thank you.
I hope it's a blessing.
It is.
Because God's really been blessing me in like ways that are just unseen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and turn on your notification bell.
There you go.